Why are there so many different Bibles? There's the NIV, the ESV, the NLT, and the NASB, and many more. These are all different translations of the Bible, but which one is the real Bible? To answer that question, we need to know a little bit about how language works and why the translations are different. So to start with, the Bible was not originally written in English, and most of us can't read Hebrew, Greek, or Aramaic, so we need it translated into English so that we can read it. We also need to understand that no language translates exactly into any other language. You can't just take one language and stick it into another language. There will always be some interpretation involved. That's just the nature of language. To put it another way, there are no literal translations. If it is translated, it will include some interpretation. One example is John 10:24. The second sentence in the ESV reads, "How long will you keep us in suspense?" But the literal Greek reads, "Until when the soul of us will you lift up?" Now that doesn't make sense to us. So not only do you need it translated, but we also need it interpreted to some extent. But what we can choose is how much interpretation we have in our translation. This is where the different translations come in. Every Bible translation has a different goal or purpose. This is what is called translation philosophy. They will usually ask the question who their audience is and what's the best way to reach them. They want their audience to be able to read and understand it. Is it for young people or adults, higher educated people or not, people with Christian background or not? This will affect the words and the grammar they choose to use. For example, the NIRV was written on a 3rd grade reading level and the NIV was written on a 7th grade reading level. They will also decide whether they're going to translate as close as possible to word for word, or are they going to translate thought for thought. Remember, words are used to convey the meaning of something. So both translation types are trying to convey the original meaning to the intended audience. The word for word type is called a formal equivalence, and the thought for thought is called a dynamic equivalence. The dynamics are more interpretive, but they will generally be easier to read. They will take a passage in the original language, then they will translate the meaning of it using words that the audience can understand. They're not necessarily concerned with translating each word. The original might have 6 words, but the translation may have 10 words. They're focused on the meaning of the passage. The NLT is one example. Formal translations are less interpretive, but they can be harder to read. One reason for that is because they try to translate word for word, so the English is not as smooth as we're used to. One example is the NASB. Some translations try to balance between dynamic and formal, and they fall somewhere on a scale between very dynamic and very formal. Now this is a chart showing about where some of those translations fall out. As you can see, the NASB is on the formal end of the scale and the GNT is towards the dynamic end. The others fall somewhere in between. Now you can find all these charts online. So which Bible should you use? Now, I would recommend using one as your main Bible, then referencing other Bibles when you're studying a particular passage. That will help you get your mind around what it's saying. And don't always look at different translations as being opposed to each other. Sometimes they are, but try to see different aspects of one translation that bring out something that the others don't. I think a formal like the ESV is a good choice for a study Bible, but you'd be surprised how much a dynamic can help you to understand a passage when you use it with your study Bible. Now you can get all these different Bibles online for free. You can even look at several different translations at the same time side by side. You can also look at the Greek or Hebrew that's behind the word being translated. I like using BibleHub.com, and you might be surprised that Jesus also used translated Bible. He used the Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament. So translations of the Bible are legitimate and biblical, but if no translation is exactly the same, how can Christians claim that the Bible is infallible and without error? And why do some Bibles leave out entire verses? Now we will answer these questions and many more common questions about our faith in upcoming videos. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell if you want updates on our posts.